Hello, I am Pamela Bigelow.
And I'm Pete Bigelow.
We are with DekTek Tile. Today we are going to show you how to install the DekTek Tiles on a 3-season porch.
Equipment and materials needed for setting DekTek tiles: caulk gun, wet diamond saw, chalk line, tape measure, liquid nails, marble and granite adhesive, and shims.
Hi, this is Pete with DekTek Tile, and I'm here today with our contractor Scott Elliott of Elliott & Company Contracting. He's building this deck, and we're putting on a DekTek Tile surface, so we're going to show you some ideas on how to set tile and how it's done. And we're going to start with sister joisting. We recommend sister joisting all of the joists so you get a little more square inches of adhesive on it. Plus, in the real world, the joists are usually not 16-inch on center, which means that you're going to run out of bearing for the tile to set on. But Scott here has set these joists perfectly 16-inch on center, so we're not going to sister joist it. But we have to put one piece on here. There's a little flaw in one of the joists, and we're going to put that on first just to show you how you sister joist the deck, and then we're going to start setting tile. Alright, so we're going to put a joist on here. You can see this this one joist has an angle there. It must have been where the bark was, and the tile's not going to bear properly, so we at least have to put a joist to fix that so our tile can have something to bear on. And Mr. Scott Elliott here is going to put that on. And she's on. That's how quick the sister joisting goes. So anyway, let's get started setting tile. Okay, so now we're going to make sure that we're square. We want to start our tile where it's square, so Scott and Ed here are going to run a straight line, just in case this wall isn't square. But we're pretty sure the wall is square, but we just want to show you how to make sure you start out right, because you don't want to you don't want your tile running at an angle. Go. So now we got that started, and we'll make sure we follow the line back as we go. Okay, so we're ready to set our first tile. He has these joists figured where the center joist is the middle of the tile, and we're going to set the tile from there on out and cut the two ends, which is actually the proper way of doing it, so that you don't have an uneven cut on one side. They both look even the same. It doesn't have to be done that way, but it's just professional. And so the next step is you want to lay all your tiles out like we have down here, and so that you can pick different colors and make sure that when you lay them over here, you got a proper mix. You don't have a whole bunch of one color in one spot and a whole lot of the other color, because these are varied. They're made to be varied. And so anyway, that's what we're going to do now. We're going to make sure that we have all the colors we want over here, and then we're going to start setting them. So when you set your deck, don't just think you can take a pallet of tiles and go in there and just grab one and start setting it. You've got to make sure that you have the colors all mixed properly. So we're about to start setting this. We dry laid these in here. There's no adhesive on them yet. We wanted to make sure that our joist is going to work out properly with our joist. And we used an 1/8-inch spacer. And I recommend you probably start with some spacers, but you're probably going to have to not use spacers on everything, because these tiles are not built exactly the same size. They might vary a 1/16 of an inch. So once you bring out a couple rows, I want you to take a 6-foot level and just tap, check it out, make sure your line stays straight. Okay, so if we're doing the tile in a regular tile fashion, we've established our square line and put a chalk line, as you can see here. But we decided we're going to do the running bond, which means we're going to stagger the tiles halfway like this. So you can see we added another chalk line at exactly half of the tile, which is about 8 inches, nominally less, just maybe a 1/16 less than 8 inches. Okay, so you can see here we got to cut about approximately 10.5 inch piece on the end, and the same down at the other end. So Scott here is going to go ahead and cut some pieces. So Scott here is doing the 2 end cuts, and it's going to take about a 10-inch piece. So he's actually chose a couple tiles that have some discoloration. For some reason, the way cement cures, you put sealer on it, and once in a while you get a little discoloration in a few tiles. So just set those tiles aside. Like this one has a darker area he didn't like, so he marked it. And we're just going to cut it off here and use the rest of it. Alright, so Scott's going to make his first cut. He's got it marked. So after you cut the tile, you'll notice on the bottom it has some dusty paste on it. Make sure you wash that off in your water or bucket. He's going to sponge it off, just so that it doesn't stop the adhesive from sticking to the joist. And then you have to turn the tile upside down in the sun for a few minutes to dry it off, because you don't want to use adhesive on a wet tile. Okay, so we're getting ready to set our first row here. We had our tiles placed dry here, and you get a little sand and grit and dust off the bottom of the tiles, so just make sure you sweep off the top of the joist. Make sure they're not dusty and the adhesive is going to stick good. Okay, so as you can see here, we're doing single joist because he's got this frame to precision, and we're going to go ahead and run our bead. This is where the tile comes to, so we have to stay on this side of it. Well, it keeps wanting to come out of there, doesn't it? So you got to release it. So we want to center this on the joist and hit our red mark there, just like that. Don't put a ton of pressure, but push down just a little bit. The tiles are pretty heavy. Just want to make sure we're down, and that should be good. A lot of times when you're setting these, in fact most of the time, you're not going to be able to stand on the ground like I am. You're just going to have to run planks and plywood back here and kneel down and do it from there, because usually you're up in the air. We're kind of lucky here, we get to stand on the ground. I think because some of these tiles are arched in the center, they end up being higher, and we kind of arch them for strength. So when you're doing this half-cock issue especially, you might have to do a little shimming. And I see that that's just a hair low. If it looks okay to you, don't do anything, but if you want to, just pull it off and get a little shim there. Add a little plastic shim. Yeah, might as well do that side too, I suppose. And if you want, you can actually dry fit these first before you put the glue on. Otherwise, just pull it off. It's not a big deal. There, now we're up closer to where we need to be. Perfect. So here on the end, we got the end piece that's already cut. And you notice it's cut a little bigger, which the reason we did that is he hasn't finished the wall yet. He's getting 3/4 inch tongue and groove pine on this, so that's going to cover that up. But the point is where you're going to be going to your composite trim on the edge of the deck, you have to make a precision cut So you want to set your tile this way and then measure from here to here if you got composite trim, so that you get a precise cut. But for this situation, this gets covered up with tongue and groove. Okay, so in your first row, it's the most important to make sure that you get them straight and your joints even. So Scott here is going along checking, make sure our spacing is proper here, making sure we're on the center of the joist, which we are. And that's the hardest part. So once you get started, then we'll just start putting our rows back here and it'll go a little quicker. Our first row down here, which is the hard part, we got our cuts done. Now we're just putting whole pieces in here, and we're just going to keep running pieces straight along here. I'm actually gluing for several tiles at once because we're not in the sun, which makes it where this stuff doesn't dry out too fast. So I can put down enough glue for several tiles. If you're in the sun, be careful about that. You don't want to let this glue dry out, because then you won't get your bond that you need and you'll have a failure. Just make sure we line this up with our chalk line back here. You can see the chalk line right there. Kind of space it evenly by eye from this point on, I think. Scott, right, Scott? Yep. I'm picking colors that aren't all the same. We have 3 similar ones here, so we need a darker one or a lighter one, but this one happens to be darker, so that's what we're going to do. Once you put in your second row, you might have to readjust your first row a little bit, just to make sure your gap is similar. Like this one here, I'm going to pull over this way just a hair. So when you're setting these, you notice some of the patterns repeat. So make a conscious effort to keep patterns separated a few rows. A lot of times when the color is different, you don't notice it, or when you just, like, if it's the same pattern, switch it 90 degrees, or just move it a little bit. Just want to make sure you don't get a whole bunch of the same pattern. The heavier patterns that look the same are not repeated as often, so shouldn't be too much of an issue. So you can see, you can draw your tile the half hitch way, the running bond going this way. We're doing that because we want to end up at the house. Otherwise, it might be easier if you set it going this direction. But the point is when you leave it for the end of the day, you make sure that both this line and that line is right on a chalk line, perfectly straight. The reason being, you come back the next day, this glue is not going to come off, and you're not going to adjust the tiles the second day. So make sure that they're straight before you go home. Okay, so as I already mentioned, this is a 3-season porch with 3 walls all the way around it. You don't need to do any precise trimming and cutting because he's going to be covering up all the edges. But when you put this on a regular deck, you're going to have some trim boards around the outside of it generally. And it's usually either going to be composite or wood decking. And I'm using this as an example. If this is our trim board going around the outside of the deck, and we have to cut a piece coming into this, you'll notice that these tiles are arced so the water runs off of them, plus it makes them stronger. So when we put this down, you'll see that it's sticking up higher here and lower there. So we need to do a little bit of grinding on this so that it fits against this composite a little bit. It fits against the composite better. So I'm going to show you how to grind that and make it fit better. Okay, so you'll notice I eased the edge here at an angle. Kind of run it sideways along your saw. You could also use an angle grinder if you wanted to. But I eased the edge, and I didn't try to get it even, because if you notice on these edges we got little grooves in and grooves out, so that I wanted to make it kind of look similar, kind of rounded. So now when we put it up against our board, now we got a rounded, eased edge in that, and you can actually round that a little more, but just be careful down here, don't ease it too much, and then on top ease it a little more so that it blends into your composite trims. Okay, so then the next step is, after you get this ground and you look at it, different colored decks up here, especially the darker colored ones, when you grind the edge it's going to be a gray concrete. So we got to get a little bit of acid stain and paint it on there, or a little bit of antiquing for the other color of decks, just to make sure that that color's similar. It doesn't have to be exactly the same as top, but just to darken it up a little bit so that it looks good. And then after you color it, then you can put a little bit of sealer on it too.
Thanks for joining us today. We look forward to helping you create your very own outdoor elegance.